Do you find all the different types of powders so confusing? Like, what's the difference between a setting powder and a finishing powder? Should you purchase a loose powder or a pressed powder? What's the difference? Do you need to set your powder foundation? So many questions. It can be so confusing and quite frankly, overwhelming. So in today's video, we're gonna break it all down for you so you know exactly which powder is gonna be best for you. Before we get started, be sure and check the description box down below, either during the video or after the video. I'm gonna include little notes and a brief summary of each point that we talk about, just as a recap. I'm also gonna tag and list all the products that I talk about in today's video, and I'm gonna suggest a video to watch next if you enjoyed this video. Let's go. Let's start with powder foundations. So powder foundations can be one of the easiest and quickest types of foundations to apply. They're also very versatile. You can get sheer light coverage or you can build up to get full coverage from a powder foundation. So there's a lot of appealing factors when it comes to powder foundation. They also don't require a setting powder after you've applied it. So you really save an extra step in the process of applying your foundation. When it comes to getting light or full coverage, the key difference there is the brush that you use to apply it. If you're new here, my name is Lisa and I'm actually the founder of BK Beauty Brushes. And I just say that to give you a little background of my area of expertise and also to just let you know that I completely geek out when it comes to makeup brushes. They can make all the difference in the application of your product, whether it's foundation, concealer, eyeshadow. Having the right tools for the exact purpose that you're trying to achieve, it makes all the difference. If you want to achieve full coverage from your powder foundation, you're going to want to use a brush that's shorter and more dense. You want the fibers to be more dense, but still have some fluff to it. And the reason so is that a dense brush is going to pick up more product and it's going to lay down more product, but you need it to have some flexibility and some softness to it so that it actually blends out and gives you a pretty seamless blend. And it doesn't just apply product to the face without blending it out. So I find our 106 to be a really great foundation brush for full coverage, whether it's liquid, cream, or even powder. Now, if you want a lighter application, something more natural and sheer, use a fluffier brush, a brush that has a softer, fluffier brush head. Our BK Beauty 104 is a great option. This is designed to pick up less product and apply less product. So when it comes to powder foundations, having the versatility in the coverage that you get is all going to come down to the brush and the tool that you use. Okay, let's get back to the powder foundation. Now, let's be honest, powder foundations can have a bad reputation. If you are, I don't know, over the age of 40 or so, I found when I was about 35, 36, my skin started to change a bit. And the heavy powder foundations that I wore in my 20s, I could no longer wear in my mid to late 30s. By the way, I'm 41 now, but I couldn't wear those and then look flattering. They just gave a really heavy, cakey, flat look to the skin. However, there is a powder foundation that I personally love. And I would say that this is not only my favorite powder foundation, I would say this is one of my favorite foundations, period, regardless of formula, whether it's a liquid, cream, powder. It's just such a great foundation. And that's the Jane Iredale Pure Pressed Powder Foundation. This has an SPF of 20 in it. Now, the difference between this and other typical powder foundations is one really key ingredient, talc. You really want to avoid talc in your powder foundations because that can give a really heavy, cakey, chalky look to the skin. This powder foundation actually has light reflecting properties. So it actually reflects light on the skin and it gives a natural skin-like finish over time. So you put this on the skin and depending on how long it takes your skin to produce natural oils, some of it's 10 minutes, 20 minutes or so, but real quickly, within 30 minutes of applying it, your skin is going to just produce natural oils that are going to blend with this powder foundation and it gives a beautiful natural look. It's very skin-like, which is pretty surprising from a powder foundation. One product that I love to accelerate that process is the Jane Iredale Hydration Spray Palm Mist, and I will apply my powder foundation and my concealer and everything, and then I'll go in and apply this pretty liberally. We'll go ahead and do it right now. Do about 4 sprays. It smells amazing and it's just going to accelerate that process and give you that natural skin-like finish in no time. I'm going to link a video down below that talks about all the things to look for in a powder foundation, and I do feature the Jane Iredale powder foundation in that video in more depth. Jane Iredale is a brand that I love and I'm a longtime partner of theirs, and I do want to thank them for sponsoring this portion of the video. Okay, let's summarize and recap powder foundations. So powder foundations are designed to give full coverage from your powder, but you can also achieve a a lighter coverage if you use a fluffier, softer brush. Powder foundations do not require a setting powder, but powder foundations are best applied over properly prepped skin. And really, this goes for all foundations. Your foundation is going to look as good as your skin prep. However, particularly for powder foundations, you really want to make sure that you take the time to prep and hydrate the skin. If the skin is bone dry and there's no suppleness to the skin texture, when you apply that powder foundation, it's not going to adhere to the skin as easily. So if you want to have just a natural finish and full coverage, you need to make sure that your skin is properly prepped. Okay, let's move on to setting powders. So in short, setting powders are designed to do exactly how they're described. They're designed to set liquid and cream products. So think of your liquid or cream concealer, your liquid or cream foundation. A setting powder is really designed to lock and set that product so that it doesn't have as much transfer, it wears longer. It's really meant to just lock it in place and also prevent it from creasing, especially concealer underneath the eyes or settling in folds of the skin, or if you have fine lines or deep set lines. Using a setting powder is going to prevent those cream or liquid products from migrating, moving, and settling. So the best way to apply setting powders is to use a brush and really press it into the skin. You want to avoid sweeping or disrupting that liquid or cream product underneath. So just lightly press with a brush the product into the skin. That's the best way to set and lock those cream or liquid products without disrupting them, without moving them. A brush that I've really been enjoying using lately is the Nikki LaRose N17 brush. I like to use the darker side because this is going to pick up a little less product than something a bit more dense, like let's say the BK Beauty 110. This is going to pick up more product. This is going to give you a lot more control. So particularly underneath the eyes, I always set with powder, but I want to make sure that I'm not over powdering because this area underneath the eyes is really delicate, it's thinner, and if you over apply powder, it can accentuate fine lines and texture and just make that area look very dry and cakey. So the key is using just enough setting powder, but not too much, especially if you have drier or mature skin. You can also use this technique, and this is personally what I like to do, is what I call precision powder or precision set. So what that means is instead of taking a large brush and applying setting powder all over the face, I'm going to take a smaller brush like the N17, and I'm going to powder in the areas that I need it the most, which is underneath the eyes to set that concealer. It's also going to be on the forehead because I tend to produce more oil there and get pretty shiny. It's also going to be around the nose because I also produce more oil there, and around the nose is where I might experience my foundation moving or settling halfway throughout the day, and I'll also go around the nose. So it's kind of that T-zone area, some people call it. So depending on where you need it, if you have really oily skin, you may need to set the entire face. If you're a bit more combo, then the T-zone, but really thinking through where do I actually need to set and lock in my products with a setting powder and where can I skip. Setting powders also come in loose and pressed formulas. So what's the difference between a loose powder and a pressed powder? Well, loose powders tend to be more finely milled. They tend to be a little refined and a little lighter weight. So I personally love to use loose powders when I'm first applying my makeup in the morning or the day or whatever. It's when I first apply my makeup. However, I will keep a pressed powder in my purse for touch-ups because obviously walking around with a big loose powder product like this in my bag is not practical. It's pretty messy. It's just not going to happen. So I like to use a loose in the morning, and then I'll use a pressed in my purse if I need to touch up. I usually find myself touching up maybe once a day. Of course, that's dependent on the time of year. Summer, I might do it a little bit more, winter, a little bit less, or maybe not touch up at all. But that's the difference between loose and pressed powders. You can also find them in a variety of shades. So I personally like to use a translucent loose powder, meaning that it's not going to add any color or pigment to my foundation. So if I have the perfect foundation match, I don't want to put a powder on it that's going to be a little darker or a little lighter that's then going to alter the color of my foundation, right? So I like to use translucent. They also are a little lighter weight than a pigmented powder. However, if you like to brighten underneath the eyes, or if you need to compensate because maybe you have your summer shade foundation and it's the winter and you're a little bit more pale, you can use a lighter powder to kind of balance that out. So you can pick up powders in translucent shades, you can pick them up in skin tone shades. And you can also find these in like actual shades like yellow or peach or pink. I have some from One Size. This is the shade Sweet Honey, and it's kind of like a light peach, which is going to cancel out any like blue or green tones and kind of brighten the skin depending on your skin tone. Then they also have the ultra pink. You know, pink powders had their moment. I think they still are. It's a very kind of makeup trend right now to use a pink powder underneath the eyes. Again, it's a brightening technique. And then they have one called Rich Peach, which is going to gonna give you that same brightness effect, but be a little better for deeper skin tones. So again, you can find setting powders in actual shades like this, and that's really designed to like color correct. Think of it as a color corrector. So if you wanna brighten or cancel out any undertones, those are really great powders to use. One other tip I like to do, if you are someone that likes to precision powder and you're someone that wears cream or liquid bronzers or blush, I like to set with a little powder what I call the perimeter of those cream products. So I won't powder directly on top of those cream products, but I will create a perimeter around it, which is gonna prevent those cream or liquid products from moving or migrating down the face. So that's another little makeup hack that'll help you lock and keep your makeup in place. Okay, let's summarize setting powders. So setting powders are designed to set and lock in liquid and cream products. Setting powders are best applied when you press them into the skin versus sweeping them across the face. Loose, translucent options are going to be the lightest, most refined setting powders that you can find and use. And last, you can choose a setting powder in a skin tone shade or even in a color correcting shade to alter the shade or color correct your foundation or concealer. Okay, let's talk about finishing powders. And this one is a bit of a newer type of product to the market. I mean, it's not brand new, it's been around for many years, but of setting powders and powder foundations, finishing powders is kind of a newer makeup trend. So they're designed to really perfect the appearance of your skin. So think of like blurring pores, think about giving a radiant kind of lit from within glow to the skin without being like a heavy highlighter, right? So these powders are really designed to enhance the skin's appearance. Now, because they are a powder, there is going to be some quality to them that softly sets just because of the texture of it. It's a powder, but it's not going to quite lock in and set your foundation like a traditional setting powder would. However, during the research of this video, I actually discovered a few powders that I already owned, and it's interesting because these are some of my favorite loose powders that actually double as a setting and a finishing powder. So I was like, okay, light bulb moment. That is why I love these powders so well, because they make the skin look amazing and they lock in product. So I'm gonna share those with you. Stay tuned. Okay, so unlike setting powders, I actually find applying the finishing powder all over the face is a really nice way to get that filtered, flawless look all over the face. And I like to use a fluffy, larger brush. So rather than using something smaller, I like to use a fluffy brush. This is still gonna pick up less product and apply it very subtle and natural, and also give you flexibility. So you're not gonna pick up too much product and then try and correct an over application. It gives you a lot of control. Again, I love the BK Beauty 104 for this. Okay, so let's talk about a few of my favorite finishing powders. By the way, I really wanted this video to be more informational and not so product focused, but I am going to drop a list of my favorite like powder foundation. I already told you guys it's Jane Iredale, but I'm also gonna list my favorite setting powders, my favorite finishing powders. And so you can find product recommendations down in the description box, and I will give you guys a list in all different price ranges. So whether you're shopping at the drugstore or you're shopping in a retail store, you can find something to fit your budget. Okay, so let me spill the beans. Let me share with you two loose powders that I love that I discovered through the research of this video are actually finishing and setting powders. So the first one, where are you, my friend? Here you are, is the my beloved Givenchy Prisma Libre powder. My goodness, I love this powder so much. I have it in the shade 3, which is the rose shade, so it's slightly pink, but what I love about it, it's very, very subtle pink. And I also have it in the number 2, which is the Satin Blanc shade, I believe it's called. Also really nice. So what I love about this powder is it's very, very lightweight, very finely milled. It just softly mattifies the skin without looking heavy, and it just erases texture, you guys, particularly texture like from large pores. It makes everything look smooth, like a porcelain doll, like you just took an airbrush tool to the skin. It really does give you filtered looking skin. And it also sets your makeup, locks it in, and keeps it in place all day. So this is definitely my top loose powder purchase recommendation, I think. It's definitely on the higher end side, but if you have a good drugstore budget-friendly alternative option to this, drop it in the comment section down below, you guys. Obviously, I try a lot of products, but I haven't tried it all. I haven't tried everything, so please educate me and each other. Sharing is caring, right? Let others know what a great, affordable option they can find. Drop it down below. Okay, another product that I picked up that I discovered was a setting and finishing powder from the research of this video, and I'm really excited about this one because this one, my friends, has an SPF in it. It's the Ciel Filter and Protect SPF 30 loose powder. This brand I have really been loving lately. Everything I've purchased from them I think has turned out to be a fantastic product. So this is a really fine loose powder. By the way, I have the shade 01. It's very, very fine and lightweight. That's what I look for in my loose powders. They must be really, really refined. And this does similar things to the Givenchy, to be quite honest. It really, really does. It will set the makeup in place, and it also gives a very filtered, blurred, smooth effect to the skin. So this is a really nice option as well. If I had to pick one of the two, I would say go for the Givenchy, but this one is a really great option too, and it has an SPF 30. Okay, and a great alternative if you want a finishing powder that's gonna illuminate the skin and give a subtle glow, you just can't beat the Hourglass ambient lighting powders. You just can't, you guys. They are absolutely beautiful. They are powder that illuminates the skin, and it's not overly highlighty. Highlighty, is that a word? Like, you can apply this all over the face and you're not gonna look greasy or too shiny. However, if you prefer to go a little more subtle and just like use it as a highlighter in certain areas, you can do that too. Just keep in mind it's gonna be a very, very subtle highlighter. But this is a beautiful, beautiful option to apply all over the face, you guys, and just give that very soft, lit from within look. It's gonna look like you're walking around with a spotlight on your face. It is absolutely beautiful, and I have yet to find an option that beats this, really. But again, if you have a good dupe, let us know down below. Okay, let's summarize and recap finishing powders. So finishing powders are designed to give a filter-like effect on the skin. So whether that's mattifying and blurring pores and texture, or giving a lit from within subtle radiance to the skin. Finishing powders are best applied all over the face as kind of the last step to your makeup application. So take a large fluffy brush and you can literally dust it all over the face. Of course, you can avoid the areas like the bronzer or the blush if you don't want to alter that, and just apply it all over the face. Finishing powders come in matte formulas or also glowy, like radiant formulas. And last, they are best applied with a fluffy brush. Again, the 104 is just such a great one. You can't go wrong with this. I love this because it's big and fluffy, but it's also great for all face sizes and face shapes. We have some brushes that are really great for smaller faces. We have some brushes that are really great for larger, rounder faces, but this one I feel is just like a really great all-purpose brush for everybody. Okay, you guys, so we've covered a lot and we are almost done, but there is one more powder worth talking about, and it lends itself actually to being a great powder to keep in your purse for touch-ups throughout the day. And we're talking about the powder with SPF. Now, you can find these in a pressed formula, but I actually find that the ones that come with the brush are really convenient for your purse, right? I've seen them from so many brands. I personally love the Jane Iredale one. It has an SPF of 30. I also love this because it's weightless. It's very, very lightweight. And the brush is a really good quality. I think that's one of my biggest complaints from these kind of built-in brush powder products is typically the brushes are scratchy or terrible, and you just kind of work with it because that's all you get. But this brush is actually probably the best quality brush I've found in a product like this. So this is the translucent shade, but it also comes in a few skin tone shades as well. And it's very lightweight, it's weightless, and you just apply it to the skin and it's gonna kind of help add a little extra SPF to your day and freshen up your foundation. You can also use these in the hairline as well if you want to put a little bit in your hairline. You can use it on the body, but this is a great product to just keep in your bag, touch up your foundation on the go, and add a little SPF. Okay, you guys, that wraps up this video. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. Also, I'm going to link another video to watch next. If you enjoyed this one, you're going to love this one.